Thus, we've reached the end of the Year 1 heists with this one, and I gotta say, I was surprised with this. Not because of anything substantial that I didn't remember, but because this heist is actually one that's designed really well. So well, in fact, that most, if not all, of my changes fall under the category of hotfixes and could very likely be fixed with less than a week's worth of effort. So, jumping the gun here, if you're only going to buy one DLC heist for Payday 3, make it Fear and Greed. Taking place in the stock market, this is the only heist in the game with absolutely zero loot bags, meaning you don't need to feel too bad if you didn't take the skill to carry 2 bags at once, at least until you go loud and need to set up the getaway. In stealth and loud, your main objectives are identical, save for the getaway part. Without any favors, you start on the rooftop already masked and have to disable an elevator shaft and set up a zipline to get down to the ground and infiltrate the actual stock exchange. This isn't too difficult, especially since it's supposed to be something of a puzzle with which room has the lever for disabling an elevator shaft, but I can't say the same for the zipline, which is just randomly hidden in one of the roughly 6 vent covers with no indicator for which one it might be until after you've already found it, at which point it's useless. It's nothing too bad, it's just aggravating when you want to get a move on. You can disable one of 3 elevator shafts, the central one giving you a really good view of the stock market as you go down, or one of the side elevators, potentially putting you right in front of the transfer control room that you'll need to get to later. Once you're inside the main building, your goal is to get to a trade office, either Swap Meet or Jordan Investments. Regardless of which one you have to get to, you can enter them by either finding an RFID tag or QR code to unlock the door, it depends which one they spawned with, or just shoot one of the windows and go right in. Do be careful if you do it that way in stealth though, as breaking the window has a chance to trigger a silent alarm, which is easy enough to disable by finding one of these little panels outside the office. It did give me a good jump scare the first time it happened though. The reason you go to one of these trade offices is to set up your own trades with one of their computers, where you have what feels like a 99% chance to be interrupted and have to look for Wixia papers to continue that, before grabbing a flash drive from the safe in the office to set up more things on the ground floor, before going back upstairs and looking around for a red keycard to enter transfer control. Once you're in, though, you just plug in the flash drive and watch the number go up in the top left. That's how you get your payout for this heist, and it's definitely a cool way to go about it, albeit a little annoying that the actual payout isn't as nearly as much as the actual number you see in the heist itself. You're not finished yet, though, as the real grindy part of the heist has just begun, at least if you're in loud. Once the trades start and you see the money climbing, you've got to make sure it goes as far as possible by basically going down to the broker booths and getting codes from specific ones to let the trades continue. You do this for 3 of the booths, feeling like that's enough money to do what you needed to do here. Once you've gotten as much money as you want, which, considering you can either wait out a gunfight or just sit still in a safe spot for as long as you like, is probably going to be all of the money, you go down to one of the storage rooms and grab an EMP to completely reset the stock market, and then make your escape. If you've been doing this in stealth, you just need to get to the roof and head to where Bile's swooping in with a chopper, and that's your getaway. In loud, it's a bit more interesting, since Bile can't show up with a roof covered in SWAT like a steak covered in flies, so you need to set up a remote control system to move an entire crane just to get to the much safer building nearby, making sure the cops don't mess with it. Or, you could be like me and just let them do whatever, because of course, once you do jump across this and get to the chopper, you're pretty much done. Aside from the lack of bags anywhere, this isn't exactly an outstanding heist, but it knows what it needs to do, and has a good set piece to go along with it, working really well with what it sets out to do. In stealth though, I think this is one of the most challenging heists in the game, being forced to mask up and use very specific line of sight blocking objects to do hacks on the broker booths. Even getting to the right one can be a challenge, either sneaking around on the ground, avoiding everyone, or climbing on top of the booths and dropping down on the inside once you know which one you need. It's a very fun challenge. Unless you use the favor to start the heist mask down, which trivializes the entire trade floor part of this heist in stealth, instead making the difficult parts the trade office and transfer control, since both of these are secure areas. But compared to the difficulty of avoiding all the NPCs on the trade floor, this isn't difficult at all. The only real difficulty of this is not knowing which elevator shaft the zipline will be in, since it's changed to an employee disabling that instead, since, well, you skipped that part. Of course, you do need to mask up to activate the EMP anyway, but even then, it's not that much of a challenge compared to everything else. Overall, though, after learning how the stealth for this heist works, I think it's become my new favorite from Year 1 over Syntax Error now. But like I said in the beginning of this video, I do have things I'd change with this, even if most of them end up sounding like hotfixes. First though, the other 3 favors for this heist, and starting in the trade floor is pretty self-explanatory, especially with the sheer amount of power it gives you. There's shutter control, which is specific for loud, and this prevents civilians from running away out of the main hall area of the heist, as well as the cops from entering the main hall via the front door. It can be useful, especially if you're running a build that focuses on hostage trading, but you can just as easily play the heist without it. It's good for a specific niche, but not much more. The other 2 favors feel more focused on stealth, but can be used in either gameplay style, with one being relocated stockbrokers, putting most of them, including ones with a red keycard that you need for transfer control, all into one room. The last favor is sleeping gas, which puts the civilians inside of transfer control, well, to sleep. I don't see much use for this unless you're doing this heist in stealth with someone else and you use the objectively most powerful favor of starting inside the exchange. Especially if you're masked up, aka the default for this heist, you're just smacking the civs in there anyway to keep them from running away. It's not like they can fight back, so really it's not all that useful unless you're not masked up. None of the favors are bad, but by laying them all out next to each other, they just range from decent to insanely good without any real middle ground. With that said though, I do think the starting inside the exchange favor could do with one minor change, and that's giving you an indicator for where the disabled elevator shaft is before you set off the EMP, so you can know where it is and set it up while you're waiting for the money transfer. Maybe an argument could be made that this makes the favor even stronger, but I just think a quality of life change like that would be really worthwhile. Also on the list of quality of life changes regarding the zipline, I already mentioned an indicator for which vent it's hidden inside the roof, but how about being able to disable all 3 elevator shafts if you bring your own zipline bag by getting 2 extra on the roof section you start on? It would be a good reason to bring the favor, and it's a lot more fun than just removing it as an option because the zipline already exists in the heist. Road Rage has 2 ziplines for the tower if you bring that favor, why can't more heists have something like that? The last thing I thought could do with some changing was the way the money climbs once your trades go through. I already mentioned how you only need 3 of the booths to be interacted with for the maximum value, but after that you're just waiting for the number to go up, similarly to how the evidence scanning in Houston Breakout works, although this is nowhere near as tedious as that since this is entirely passive. It'd just be a bit nicer if the rate it went up doubled after you enter the 3rd code from the broker booth in stealth, so you're not sitting around and waiting for nearly as long. Legitimately, in one of my stealth runs, I got to a safe hiding spot and just went to the bathroom while waiting for the money to climb because everything else was set up. You don't need to do anything for the money to go up, which is the biggest strength and weakness of it. Other than these changes that really just feel like they're hotfixes or things that would be added to Payday 2 by Sidetrack in the form of forgettable patch notes, I actually don't really have anything I'd want to change here. Fear and Greed is just a well-designed heist, especially now with all of the bugs fixes it got from launch, and the color grading of the exchange floor not being nearly as obscene as it was then. This heist is just well-designed, so bravo. With that out of the way, year 1 is now finished up, so it's time to move on to the least invested year of Payday 3 with year 2. There's 4 total heists to look at from this second year, so this series is also coming closer to an end. In the meantime, though, I'll be making a video on some of the main builds I've been using for loud footage in case anyone wants to use them. They're pretty fun if I do say so myself. Until next time, appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you take care.